laptop. I can see it, I can view it, but I can't run it for some reason off my laptop. Okay, so anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about loneliness. So apologies for starting late, but I had some technical issues, so I've sorted that out, hopefully. So the first thing that I would like to talk about, or I would like to ask really, is what you guys think loneliness is. So what does loneliness mean to you as a person, as an individual? Because I find that a lot of times it means different things to different people. And so it's really helpful to know where it stands for other people, so that I can get an idea of where I'm at. Yeah, so right, welcome anybody who's just signing on. Welcome. We're just talking about what we think loneliness is, what does it mean to us, and I'm going to explain what it means to me and how I've experienced it, and hopefully that will work out. Okay, so loneliness. When I think of loneliness, I don't think of being alone. When I'm alone, and I'm enjoying my own company, and I'm doing a activity that I really enjoy, then I'm not lonely. I'm just alone. So there's nobody else present, but I don't feel lonely. When we talk about loneliness, how I interpret it is being in an environment where you feel, so you have the feeling of loneliness. So you can be surrounded by other people, you can be in a busy environment and have lots of friends around you, family members, things like that, but still feel completely alone. And this comes from a personal perspective of the situation. So whereas being alone is an actual environmental perspective, so you're alone, there's nobody else in the room with you, you are the only person there, loneliness is more a feeling. So I can be alone, or I can be in a room full of people, but I will still feel lonely. It's one of these tricky things where a lot of people can misinterpret loneliness for being alone. And that's not really true, because like I said, being alone is an environmental thing, whereas being lonely is a emotional feeling. It's how you are in that moment in the situation that you're in. An example of when I've felt loneliness was when my mental ill health was at its lowest, and I felt very misunderstood by the people around me. I was confused because I didn't really know how to handle what was going on with me. I couldn't understand why it was happening to me. I was living alone, but up until that point, I hadn't really suffered with loneliness. I'd actually been enjoying my alone time, but when my mental health got really, really bad, then I started to have that sort of emptiness, that empty, sad feeling inside. And I started to feel really lonely. So please, whatever you want to do, if you want to put anything in the chat, please let me know. Please do let me know that you hear me, because I tried it on my laptop and it didn't work, and so I'm doing it on my mobile phone. And I played the video on my laptop as a guest, and they were hearing me, so I hope you can hear me. So what is loneliness for you guys? What do you feel when you feel lonely? Is it that you just are in a room alone by yourself and you're not actually lonely, you just think you are? Or is it that you're actually lonely as a feeling? You're feeling sad and you're feeling lonely. Now, loneliness comes a lot from our perception of ourselves. It has a lot to do with our self-esteem. Because you can be alone, but still enjoy your own company and still like doing the things that you like to do on your own. And you can be really happy in that space. And that happens with a lot with people with autism. So they like to be in their own space. They like to be alone because they don't get overstimulated. And so they are quite happy being alone. Whereas somebody else in that situation might not feel happy about being alone. They might think, well, actually, I feel really lonely. Now, that doesn't mean that people with autism can't feel lonely, because everybody can feel lonely at any time. But it's important to distinguish between the two. So it's really important to sit with yourself and try and think, am I lonely as in I need to go and see someone else and I just need somebody else's company? Am I actually feeling alone? Or is this a feeling of sadness and loneliness within me because I don't want to spend time with myself? Because I maybe don't like myself, or I don't think my company is good enough, or I feel like I should be doing something else, whereas I really actually just want to be chilling here on my own. So it's important to actually sit and think, why do I feel lonely? And once you establish whether that is actually, this is just what I perceive I should be doing, I perceive that I should be going out, I perceive that I should be doing things, and now I'm feeling guilty because I'm not doing what everybody else is doing, and so I must feel lonely. But you're not actually feeling lonely. You're just assuming that you're feeling lonely because you've not actually really looked inwards and thought, am I feeling lonely? Or am I quite happy on my own? And then other times, you might sit and think, well, actually, I'm feeling really sad. I'm feeling really low. I'm feeling misunderstood. The reason why I am sitting here feeling lonely is because I'm actually lonely. Now, this is a big problem, being lonely, because it can actually affect your mental health. It can affect your physical health. There are a lot of things that it can affect, both negatively and positively. In the sense of positively, it can encourage you to actually go and seek a way to change that feeling of loneliness. And it can tell you when something is missing in your life, something that you might want to think about and think, okay, so why am I feeling lonely in my own company? Why can't I just spend time with myself? What am I unhappy about who I am as a person that makes me not want to spend time with me? And that can be really eye-opening. And that's something that I really worked on. And in fact, that was the main thing that I worked on for my happiness. To find my way to happiness, I had to actually learn to like myself as a person, learn to love who I am, and learn to love to spend time with myself. Because if I didn't love spending time with myself, nobody else was going to love spending time with me. And so even when I was around other people, I felt extremely lonely because I felt misunderstood, because I didn't really understand what I wanted or who I was as a person and what my values were. And that's something I worked really hard on. And I've got a episode on going through values and boundaries and how important that is on my YouTube channel. I've been looking at the statistics. It's quite dire, to be honest. So loneliness and social isolation. I'm just going to have my little World Health Organization stats poster here, because I'm not very good at remembering stats off by heart. So it says to up to 50% of people who are lonely or socially isolated have an increased risk of developing dementia. 25% have an increased risk of early death, which is quite shocking. And up to 30% have an increased risk of stroke and cardiovascular disease. So those are pretty upsetting statistics. Those were done in 2023, published by the World Health Organization. And it's really scary, actually. There's some more stats. Sorry, I'm having to flick through my mobile phone because I'm doing the live on my mobile phone. So pretty shocking statistics, really, that loneliness can contribute to quite a large number of physical ailments. And so we really need to think about what loneliness means to us, because if we understand what loneliness means to us as an individual, we can then look at how to deal with it. Now, a lot of times you'll find advice and information out there about loneliness, but very rarely do they say that you actually need to look inwardly and find out what makes you as an individual feel lonely. Is it a perception that you have? Is this something that you feel like you should be lonely if you're on your own at home and you need to go out and do what everybody else is doing? Or do you feel lonely because you don't like spending time with yourself? And if you don't like spending time with yourself, why don't you like spending time with yourself? What is it about spending time with yourself that makes you lonely? And once we understand that, once we understand what it is about ourselves that makes us feel lonely when we are around others or on our own, then we can start to look at ways to tackle that. And so once we've established those ways that we can then tackle it, we can take it step by step. It's very important to understand that doing these things is not going to be easy. It's not easy to actually, have a look at yourself and really dig deep into your feelings as to why you feel sad and lonely. And sometimes some pretty, scary stuff can come up. And it's so important to seek the help of a professional if you need to. If something comes up that you need to seek professional advice for, then please do so, because there are a lot of really excellent therapists and counselors out there who are very skilled at their job and have really good techniques that they can use. I myself went through therapy that helped me to be able to discover the reason why I was feeling lonely was because of my self-esteem, and so I had to work on that in therapy. So if you need to talk to a professional, then please do so. I'm not a professional psychiatrist or psychologist. I am a mental health trainer. I have lived experience with mental ill health. I'm a mental health podcaster. So I have a lot of knowledge about mental health, but I'm not trained as a counselor or therapist. So please do seek their advice if you need to. One of the ways that we can tackle loneliness is to think, what could you do that could help in this situation? What do you need to make you feel less lonely? Is that you need to look inside and see what's going on inside? Or is it that you need to have a look externally at your life? Maybe you've not got the right friends, or maybe you've put barriers between yourself and the others around you. And so you've not actually had conversations with them about feeling lonely, and you've not developed close relationships with your friends or your family. And so you don't feel that you can share this with them. And it's one of those things that is really scary when you start to be vulnerable with others around you, because you never quite know what's going to happen in that situation. Loneliness can be an indicator that your relationships that you have are not giving you everything that you need from that relationship. And you might have to reassess your relationships with the people around you and go, okay, I want to feel less lonely. And so I want to try and figure out, what is it about the relationships that I have that makes me feel lonely? And if I feel lonely within relationships, why is that? What about the relationship is making me feel lonely? Is it that it's something to do with me, and I need to go and explore that? I need to maybe go for therapy, or I need to have a conversation with my partner and express my feelings of loneliness and see maybe they're feeling the same way, and I wasn't aware of it, and maybe that will start a really good conversation with them. Other times it can be because you're not sharing things. You might be holding things back because you want to be the rock, the pillar. You want to be the person who's always helping everybody else, but then you're neglecting yourself in the process. And so it's very important to make sure that you are trying to find out, is it something to do with you that you're lonely, or is it something to do with your environment or the people that you have relationships with, and how can you change that? And a really good way of sort of starting that change is just assessing the relationships that you have in your life with family or friends, and think, is there a possibility that I can have a conversation with one of those people and be vulnerable and say I'm feeling lonely, and know that it's safe to do so, and maybe they're feeling lonely too, and maybe they'll share that as well. Or even if they're not feeling lonely, they might go, oh my goodness, I didn't know that you were feeling lonely. What can we do to help and support you? Another way of dealing with loneliness is to get into activities that you enjoy. Because when you engage with the community, when you engage with activities that you enjoy, you will naturally find people who you can relate to because they're doing the same activities as you. And so you already have something to talk about. You don't have to struggle to think about, how am I going to start a conversation? Anything like that. You can just start talking and just, have a conversation about what you guys are doing and start from there, and then start to build gradually until you build a friendship with the person, and then, continue from there on. And it's very important that if you do make friends, that you create a agreement between you and your friend of how you want your friendship to be. And that's something that I'm doing at the moment and going to do with some of my friends is I'm creating a mutually agreeable contract. It's not an actual contract, it's just a verbal discussion between the two of us of what do they want from me as their friend. How would they like me to communicate with them? You know, and then I would share, okay, well, this is what I want as a friend. You know, this is what I need from you as my friend. And this is how I want you to communicate with me. And then also agreeing how you're going to deal with conflict. Because there's no way that you can avoid conflict. And usually the friendships where you're avoiding conflict are the not very close relationships. And so you really need to reassess that friendship and go, why haven't we had arguments? Because if a person really knows you and understands you and spends a lot of time with you, there will tend to be a disagreement between the two of you because you are human beings and human beings have disagreements. And so it's very important that you understand how you're going to deal with that. Having a conversation at the beginning of a friendship is going to make it so much easier because I've been friends with people for a really long time and I'm only starting to have these conversations with them now. And that is really tricky because it's kind of going, oh, well, now I want to change things. And, you know, this is kind of scary and, you know, how's this going to work? And it's a different conversation that you're having with your friend about, okay, let's see what we both want out of this friendship. I want to have a really close relationship with you. Is that what you want? And if that's the case, okay, how can we foster a close relationship? How are we going to do that? How are we going to communicate with one another? And what is our agreement if we have conflict? So if I'm upset about something or you're upset about something, how are we going to communicate with one another so that it doesn't end up escalating to the point where there's a big blowout and potentially our friendship ends? We want to make sure that we have the conversation before so that when the conflict happens, we can refer back to that original conversation and go, okay, you know, I've got a problem with you. This is how we discussed we were going to deal with it. So this is, you know, let's talk about this. Let's have this conversation. And you won't always come to an agreement, but you can agree to compromise in friendships. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, nobody can always win in situations. So you need to come up with a compromise. And so that's what I'm going to do moving forward with my friends. And I'm hoping that that will make me feel less lonely because it's nurturing a stronger, closer bond with my friends who are already in my life. And so I feel like I will be able to communicate with my friends if I'm feeling lonely and say to my friend, I feel lonely. And my friend can go, oh, I'm, you know, really sorry that you're feeling like that. Is there anything I can do that can make you feel less lonely? And so having those conversations with friends is very important, family members, colleagues. If you don't have friends or family members, it's really essential that you just find some way of communicating your needs. Because when you start to advocate for yourself, when you start to communicate your needs to others, you will then be able to start building your self-esteem and your ability to say yes or no, and you will feel comfortable in the relationships that you're in, comfortable enough to share when you are struggling, and to know that that friend will be there for you. They will support you when you're feeling lonely. They will do what they can to support you. And sometimes they can't do anything. Sometimes it's just sitting and listening. And that in itself can be very helpful. So finding somebody to listen to you can be a really extraordinary way of combating loneliness. And that can be done through friendship groups, family relationships, volunteering with organizations, um, joining clubs that you enjoy, of activities that you enjoy, and start to sort of bond with the people that are doing the activities as well. Going to, social events, if that's something that you are happy to do, then that's a really good way of um, building that sort of advocacy for yourself and making friendships and having relationships. It's exceptionally important to have people in your life who you can be really honest with and really be yourself with. And that is a very rare thing to find. And it can sometimes take a little bit of a while. But if you start your friendship or your relationship with someone, being really open and honest with them and saying, this is what I want from this friendship. This is why I want to be your friend. This is what I want from the relationship. This is how I'm going to communicate with you. And finding out from them what they want, how they need you to communicate with them, and then having that agreement is exceptionally important. And unfortunately, I have lost friendships as a result of not doing this kind of thing. And so it's so important for us to realize that just like any other relationship, friendships should be nurtured and trust should be built. And these kinds of conversations do need to happen because you want those people to be there for you when, excuse my French, the shit hits the fan. Yeah, when things get really bad in your life and you are really down in the dumps, you need people to help you. You need people to help pull you out of there. That is so, so important. And if you don't have family or friends that can do that, then reaching out to organizations that can help and support you is, yeah, it's probably one of the most important things that I did, is just reaching out to mental health organizations and saying, I need help, I need support. Samaritans are absolutely fantastic. Mind are really brilliant as well with that. Cruise bereavement, if you've had a bereavement, I went through them when my mom died, and they were absolutely brilliant. It's the only person who can change the feeling of loneliness that you have is you. And it doesn't need to be massive changes. It can just be small things, small steps, one at a time, just taking it slow, trying things. Some things will work, some things won't work. And eventually you'll find something that works for you, that you feel comfortable with, and you will start to feel less lonely. And it's incremental, so it happens a little bit at a time. And it takes time. It doesn't just happen straight away, because the work is not just external, it's also internal. You need to find out why you feel this way. You need to understand yourself and understand what would help you to feel less lonely. And once you understand that and why you feel the way you feel, then you'll be able to start to form really close friendships with people around you, and you'll be able to build really strong relationships, and that feeling of loneliness will go away and it will slowly start to dissipate. And even if you are completely on your own and alone, because you've done that inner work on yourself, you don't feel lonely. So I live on my own and I spend a lot of time alone, and I don't feel lonely anymore. And the reason for that is because I've done the inner work. I've done the looking, the learning, and the doing. It's the best way I can explain it. So looking inward, seeing why do I feel lonely, learning about myself and what I can do to feel less lonely, and then doing. So actually going and doing something that makes me feel less lonely, and just taking small baby steps at first. It might just be, talking to somebody on the street who might have a dog, for instance. Really good excuse to talk to another person that have an animal with them. Just approach them, ask them about the animal. People love talking about their animals, love talking about their animals. So it's a really good way to start a conversation with people. And it's not got a lot of pressure on you. And it's a small interaction with a person, but it can make a big difference. And then all you do is you build on those small interactions a little bit by little bit. You start to extend those interactions with people, and you start developing relationships with people, and then you start feel less lonely. So I hope this has been helpful to you, and if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them on the chat. And again, sorry about the issues with the laptop. I don't know what happened there, but I will try and figure it out. So luckily we have mobile phones and they work just fine. So yeah, let me know in the chats if you have any questions moving forward, and I will do my best to answer them. Like I said, I will be doing a video which I'm going to research extensively about loneliness, to be determined date of when I would get that done, probably a couple of weeks, because I've got some other stuff that I need to do first, but I will get it done. Thank you to the person who voted for us to talk about loneliness. You have been seen, you've been heard, and I will do the episode on loneliness for you, but I do like to research my content before I make a video about it. But I just thought we could have an informal chat about loneliness and what it's been like for me, and the kinds of things that I've been doing to manage my loneliness, and to hear from you guys about, whether you've been lonely, and if you have been, what have you done to make yourself feel less lonely. And if you need access to any resources, please let me know. I do have a few resources that I would like to put in the comment section of this live chat, so I'll pop it in there. There's a campaign against loneliness, a specific campaign that's been done by the Red Cross. So there's a pamphlet for that, so I will post that on the comment section, so you guys can go and have a look at that, because I think that's really brilliant. Campaign against loneliness, I'm all for that. And there are some resources on Mind about loneliness as well, so please feel free to have a look at their website. And Samaritans, again, they are excellent. They are so well trained, and they are completely confidential. Their number won't even show up on your phone bill when you phone them. That's how confidential they are. They really are absolutely fantastic, and I've heard nothing but good things about them. So if you do need support, please reach out to those resources, and I hope that you found something useful from this live. Please be kind. This is my first sort of official live with people on, and I had some technical issues, so I'm a little bit frazzled, but hopefully you found something helpful out of this. And yeah, and so like I said, I'll pop the resources and in the comment section for you to have a look through. And yeah, and if you want to comment on the video and talk about whether you've struggled with loneliness and what you did to combat it, or what you're going to try and do, then that'll be great. I look forward to hearing from everyone.